live, to quote Warren Buffett. Ezra is still running a little late, so he's not in the most ideal spot to do this live stream, but we're going to do it because it has to be done. So yeah, and if anyone's asking why it's running late, Ezra was the weather is not cooperating. So force majeure, we'll call it. Okay, before I introduce Ezra, although I suspect everybody already knows him, so just to explain what we're going to do, same format. I have two specific issues I want to talk to Ezra about and get some information on. I'm going to get to the super chat questions I've never missed one yet, but super chat questions will get addressed in a manner that doesn't hopefully interfere with the conversation, keep the dialogue civil, etc., etc. And what else? Ezra.
First of all, apologies to your viewers. It was the snowstorm that I was on a plane and I pulled over. I'm delighted to talk with you. I watched your video a few days ago about this strange case of Canada elections. So happy to talk about it with you. I enjoy your commentary because you actually know what you're talking about, which is extremely rare on the internet.
I will take the compliment. Some of this is new law to me because I mean I've never done Canada Election Act law. I've done injunctions. I've done a ton of stuff, but so I have a base, but it's still a learning curve for me. Yeah, it's incredible. Where do we start with this? The two discussions or two issues, but while people trickle in because it takes sometimes some time for YouTube to notify people. Ezra, for anybody who doesn't know, Ezra is one of the co-founders of Rebel Media.
Yeah, when the Sun News Network shut down about 5 years ago, a handful of us started an internet-based alternative, mainly YouTube, but we have some paywall stuff too. And since that time, we've published, 14,000 little videos. We have 1.3 million YouTube subscribers, 2-3 billion minutes worth of videos served. But besides video, we do other shenanigans. We publish books. I think we published around 5 of them. We have conferences. We even have cruises. We make a little bit of trouble. We have billboards. We have, it's shenanigans. We're having fun, and we're conservative in our orientation. And that sometimes puts us at odds with the Liberal government.
Okay, and it's very interesting when we're going to talk about getting into trouble a bit because I've seen your stuff. I know about Gavin McInnes, Faith Goldie. I know a bunch of stuff. But when I was looking on Wikipedia, I started getting scared about doing this live stream the way Wikipedia was describing Rebel, McInnes, the people who work at Rebel. And it's an amazing thing. We will get into it because there's no doubt, and I know people are thinking it, people are saying it, you are troublemakers, you're antagonists, and there's going to be some people who are going to say, and you're getting what you deserve, which we'll talk about afterwards, because I think it's a fair critique, but it's not. I don't think it's the proper perspective of what is at issue in this type of political climate.
Right. I guess my quick response to what you said there, and I'm sorry, I'm just sitting in my car trying to find a way that I have the lights on, and I parked under a light, so hopefully I'm not that dark. I guess what I would say to anyone who would say, "Oh, you're getting what you deserve," is remember the phrase "stare decisis." Let's stand the precedent. Let's stand the decision. So whatever. And I remember Alan Bourvoy, who used to be the head of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. He used to say, "Free speech is the gift you have to give to your opponents if you want it for yourself." I thought that was a very beautiful way of saying it. But another way of saying it is, what precedent you want to set with me and Rebel News and my book, get ready to have that precedent followed when maybe there's a different prime minister and it's a different author. So as we talk about what the election commissioner is doing to me and my book, in the back of your mind, imagine if it were, let's say, Stephen Harper, and the author wasn't a right-winger like me, but a left-winger like Naomi Klein or Margaret Atwood. So that's a good gut check on if you're just being mad at me or if you're thinking like a lawyer should, which is, we're setting precedents here. How do you feel if the shoe's on the other foot?
No, and it's interesting because we will definitely get into it. But the most concrete example of that materialized today, where after weeks of impeachment of Trump, you have Nancy Pelosi tearing up his speech. And then you have people clamoring that she just broke the law. And you have other people saying, it's not a big deal, leave it alone. But this is the type of swing that happens when one applies certain rules to certain people they don't like, and all of a sudden they don't like having those the rules applied with the same rigor to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want the law to solve everything. We want the law to allow certain amounts of conflict. I'm sorry, it's dark. I just closed the sunroof. It's a little chilly. I'm going to open that back up.
Well, so somebody just said something.
It's cold. It's cold.
Someone just said, take some lighting lessons from him. Okay.
You know what? I literally pulled the car over under a street lamp just to get some light. I'm sorry again. Anyhow, I'll let you ask me some questions because I know you've got some.
Yep, that's good. And now we're up to 5 minutes in. People have got the notification. Everybody who's watching, tweet out the link, remind friends and family, because sometimes YouTube doesn't notify people depending on what search terms are in the description. Okay, Ezra, the first thing I want to talk about before we get into the Canada election, the Leaders Debates Commission lawsuit.
Right.
Okay. I suspect everybody knows about it. They've seen my video on it, but in a nutshell, do you want to just explain what happened? And then I've got a few questions.
Sure. And I think that's a good preliminary, a prologue to this. It was in October. There was a press release saying, hey, everybody, if you would like to send reporters to cover the leaders' debates in Ottawa, just fill out this application form. Now, just to be clear, this isn't to be one of the 5 or so journalist moderators. Those were handpicked. I don't know how. I don't really care. This was to be in the building. And why is that valuable? Because after the debate, the leaders would come down to an area and have a scrum, sort of like after a sports game. The athletes come out and talk to journalists for a few minutes before or after going to the locker room. So that's the interesting part. So we applied, 2 of our journalists, Cian Bexley and David Menzies, and so did True North, which is another online-based conservative-leaning group. And on the Friday before the Monday when the leaders' debate was, we received a very terse email, not even from the Debates Commission, but rather just from, I don't even remember who it was, but not someone with the government commission, saying, oh, sorry, you can't come because you're advocacy journalists.
Advocacy journalists.
Yeah, and I didn't know that was a thing, and I didn't know it was banned. And if anyone's ever heard of the Atkinson principles behind the Toronto Star, they know that's an advocacy newspaper. And anytime you read an editorial, that's sort of an advocacy. I mean, it doesn't even, what is that? There were pundits and there were people who were accredited who were not reporters. They were opinion columnists only. What are they but advocates? I don't even know what that means. And there were foreigners who were allowed in. If I recall, Al Jazeera was accredited, a bunch of foreign broadcasters, including some state-owned broadcasters, like Al Jazeera is owned by Qatar. So we were surprised by this. They obviously delayed it to the last moment to make it hard for us to react. But we rushed to court with an emergency application for an injunction ordering the Debates Commission to let us in. And wouldn't you know it, we won. And Justice Russell Zinn of the Federal Court of Canada not only ruled that it was, I won't get into the ruling now, he ruled to let us in, but he also cast his mind forward to our larger judicial review. I should tell you, and I don't know if you know this, but we didn't just ask for an emergency injunction to get in on that Monday. We also asked for a whole judicial review of how these shenanigans happened. And so that continues. And Justice Zinn, in his ruling, said they have I'm paraphrasing, they have a good chance of that main judicial review. I should tell you that just a few days ago, the federal government applied to quash, gave notice that they want to quash our judicial review. They don't want it revealed how they came to that decision. I do. Even though the 2019 leaders debate is now moot, there could be a new election any moment because, of course, we're in a minority government situation. The commission still has all its powers and budgets and staff. There could be an election theoretically called tomorrow, and this debate commission would still be in power. And I want the judicial review for all those reasons. And obviously, if they're making bad decisions in bad ways, they need to be corrected. Let's test the law, improve the law. I want that judicial review. The government very much does not. They are desperate to hide what they did.
Okay, so that's very interesting, actually. Now, and for anybody who doesn't appreciate the nuances, they came in, Rebel Media and True North came in with I'd say it's an provisional injunction, which they drafted over the weekend, presented the Monday of, got the order authorizing them to be accredited to attend the debates. People told me in my videos that you didn't get to ask questions, though.
Oh my gosh, we asked more questions. Oh, now I'm turning into light. There you go.
That's
I'm
good.
facing the street light now. We asked more questions than any other media outlet. In fact, in the second debate, I said to our people, get to the mics first. So the first 6 questions were asked by the 3 journalists I mentioned, Cian Bexley and David Menzies of The Rebel, and Andrew Lawton of True North, because we were so excited to be given access. And I said to the guys, get there, like leave the big fight and get to the scrum area first. So the networks covered the scrum live because it was very exciting. It was such a pleasure to see the 3 banned journalists, Cian Bexley, David Menzies, and Andrew Lawton, get the first 15 minutes of live national TV. It was very good because Justice Zinn asked questions in the hearing. He said, well, is it really that valuable to go to this scrum? There's going to be 200 journalists there. It's almost like the right to get a lottery ticket. Are you actually going to have the lottery? You're actually going to have a chance to ask a question of these leaders? And I didn't know. I'd never been in one of these scrums before. In fact, just with a little bit of initiative and move fast, we asked more questions than any other journalistic outfit. I was so proud. And if Justice, it's funny, last point, I don't mean to linger on this, but Justice Zinn in his court said, maybe I'll have to watch the debates now. He sort of made a little chuckle because he was focusing on it. Well, I hope he did watch the debates. And if he did, he would have seen that his order did in fact allow us to ask questions, what he referred to as a lottery. Well, we won that lottery 3 times, 4, 5, 6 times, whatever it was.
Okay, that's excellent. That's good to address, at least answer some of the questions. You got to ask the questions, and it's not as though everyone just dodged the questions they got. They answered them, the politicians?
Well, Jagmeet Singh refused to answer, which I thought was a little weird, and so did the Bloc Québécois guy. But frankly, I don't care. Justin Trudeau answered our questions. I don't think he gave a good answer, but we asked, he answered. That's how it's supposed to go. I can't remember off by heart what all the questions were, but they were real questions, and they were real accountability questions. I'm getting some snow on me. So I'm proud we were there, and absolutely we're going to go again, and they're going to try and ban us again, and we're going to fight them again. And that's what it's like. So, and again, shoe on the other foot. Imagine if Harper had such a debate commission and he banned liberal journalists. It would be crazy.
So one logistical question. When you applied for the accreditation, what was the delay within which you applied versus the answer? Like, did you apply on the Monday and they rejected on the Friday, or had you applied weeks advance, if you know?
It was at least a week in advance. And I actually wrote a personal email to one of the people saying, hey, just can you help me? We very, very soon, because we were very excited about this. And they literally delayed till the last minute, like the last day.
Yeah, no, there's no question. There's no question it was delayed until the last day. I was just wondering if you had filled out the application like a day, 2 days earlier, or
no, it was at least a week earlier. I'm sorry, I'm going from memory, but it wasn't. We didn't forget. Okay. We were maybe a week in advance.
Okay, and is the lawsuit still pending? So you had the interim, provisional interlocutory injunction, which you got, which was the issue of attending. The longer term issue is one of judicial review of the process. Is that still pending, or has the lawsuit been settled?
No, that's still pending. And I perhaps I wasn't explicit. The government is applying to quash that ongoing judicial review. So we had a short-term Band-Aid. Justice Zinn let us in that day. But we want a long-term remedy. We want a review. I'm very curious about how they did this. I want to know who did it. I want to see the record. I want to see their internal communications about us, because I think there were shenanigans. And I think the country needs an airing of these issues. This debates commission was widely criticized, and not just by people on the right. It was criticized by journalists. It's a real mess. It seems to me to be an ideal case for a public interest judicial review, for process, for, I think, frankly, the government would benefit from a judicial review. It's not just that I want it for my own
it's
sake.
Transparency is not. It's a bad thing if you don't want things to be transparent. But it first of all, it would enlighten people as to the process. It might encourage some interest in the debates itself, and it would be transparent, which is good for governments, at least for most governments.
I mean, I would like to know why. I'm a Canadian, born in Canada. Why am I not allowed to come to a leaders' debate in my own country, but Al Jazeera is? They're not just a foreign journalism company. They're owned by the royal family of Qatar. So what's the rule for that? And I think that the government ought to answer for that and maybe fix the rules, or at least make them clear.
Okay, very interesting. I'm going to get to one super chat. Eleanor says elections are just slightly randomized monarchy. I think there's a lot of people in this chat who are going to be disillusioned with the elections process. Okay, so that's to say now, to get to something that you mentioned in it was in the news, I think, that government spent $130,000. You guys spent $18,000 on this lawsuit. I presume the government's 130 with their 5 lawyers and whatever is up until the present day, right? So it wasn't just for the 2-3 day injunction. It's for the lawsuit up to where it's gotten today.
I don't have all the information. I read it in Blacklocks. They're very good at their journalism. Since that news came out a couple of weeks ago, I know that since that time, the government has filed this motion to quash. I think that's what it's called. So they were doing a lot of work since then. Forgive me, that wasn't my primary journalism. That was Blacklocks, but they're pretty good at doing their homework. So I take them. I believe that's accurate.
No, it wasn't a question of undermining who said it. I think it's probably accurate. It's just not say misrepresent, but not to oversimplify and to say it was $18,000 for the injunction. There's probably a lot of stuff still going on, and it's going to go on. But
listen, they're going to grind us out, and 18 grand might not sound like a lot. For people who are familiar with lawsuits, they know they can be really big, but that's 18 grand. And I think that's very reasonable for my lawyers, by the way.
No, that's reasonable. That, and the results obviously are good, but this is a drop in the bucket for anybody who has had any experience with litigation. It doesn't last. That's a month in normal circumstances. Injunctions are notoriously costly and time intensive. So.
Yeah, and what does Trudeau care? I mean, he can grind us down because he is the largest law firm in the country called the Department of Justice. Plus, they hired outside counsel. I mean, it's really crazy to me. They spent 131 grand and counting to keep us. What do they think we're going to do? We were just going to turn our cameras on, and we got in line and asked some questions, and no one died. We just asked some questions. Well, they either answered or they didn't. I mean, what's the big fuss?
Well, there's no big fuss. The reality is, if it were just a question of too many applicants and they picked out of a hat, and you and True North were the two that they picked out of a hat, okay, so be it. But even still, disclose that so that people don't have.
Tell me the rules. Don't make up the rules and rig them. In fact, there's no way to rig a rule to keep me out and my people and Andrew Lawton from True North, because any rule that you think would target just us would target some other media that they want to let in. And they tried advocacy. I'm sorry, there's a lot of advocacy journalists in Canada. I don't know if you've heard of something called the National Observer. Very, very advocacy oriented on the left. They're based in Vancouver. The CBC, David Suzuki, are you telling me he's not an advocate? Anyhow, but we won that round, but the battle, but the war is continuing. So that was setting the table in October. And then over Christmas, I get a registered letter from the election commissioner about my book. Now, I wrote a book called The Libranos. It's a joke based on The Sopranos. It's sort of a, you have to be Generation X to even know who the Sopranos are. I don't think the kids
if you saw the visual, most people would get even the visual is a play on the Sopranos.
Yeah. And by the way, I've been using that meme for more than a dozen years. When I published a magazine way back in the day, we had our cover of a similar version, but of course it was Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien, who were the Libranos back then. So I've been on this Libranos thing for 14 years. And I borrowed it from a blogger in Saskatchewan named Kate McMillan. So this thing's been around a decade and a half. So I just said, well, I'll call my book that. And the book, it's a short book. It's a booklet, let's be honest, 138 pages, quick read. sold it pretty cheap, $15 for a paperback, half that for the ebook. It's a little book. Like I say, we published about 5 or 6, I don't even know, books at Rebel. Went to number 2 on Amazon, which I'm pleased with. And
then this.
Well, I should add one more thing because it's relevant. The book is called The Libranos, What the Media Won't Tell You About Justin Trudeau's Corruption. That's the subtitle. And we promoted the book as we do with YouTube videos, with emails, with we have this huge billboard, and we have little lawn sign style ads. And I don't have one with me, obviously, but they're a picture of the front cover of the book, which is that Sopranos meme. They have our name Rebel on it, and then they say 3 words: buy the book. There are only 3 words other than our logo and this Sopranos thing. It just says buy the book. Only 3 words on it, which is sort of what you do when you're selling books. So those were they were fun, and we gave them out, and we had coffee mugs and mouse pads. Like, it's goofy, right? We're this guerrilla media company. We don't have a lot of money. We're a little bit silly sometimes, and people liked it. And it's the alternative side of the story, right? If you don't like it, buy one of the 23 other books. There were 24 books on Trudeau, apparently, in the last election cycle. Mine was critical. You don't like it, don't read it. Read Aaron Wary's book of the CBC. Read John Iveson of Post Media. I'm getting snow on my hair. That's all it is. Don't mind me. I get this letter. It was dated December 9th, but I received it around Christmas. I don't know what took it so long. I don't think it was sent the day it was dated. So it was designed to reach me over the Christmas break. That's weird.
No, that's you have the Friday afternoon special, but then you have the Christmas special when they want to.
Yeah,
that's what one wants to interfere with your holidays. Get served on a Christmas, Christmas Eve.
That's what it was. Like, I was really actually on holiday with my family, and it said, and I don't have it in front of me, but I know you read the exact section the other day. It said that my book. And I've written many books. I've won book prizes before. I won the National Business Book Award for Ethical Oil, which was a pretty successful book. So I really am an author. And this was just my latest. But they said that, no, this was not a genuine book. They alleged that it was a campaign activity that ought to have been registered as if I was like a third-party campaign group, and the book and the advertising for the book. Again, I don't have the letter in front of me. I'm parked at the
and again, my purpose is not to hold you to.
No, I'm just bringing your viewers up to speed. So I get this letter saying your book and the promotion of the book should have been registered, and we're going to investigate this, and if you cooperate with the investigation, the penalties will be lower, or they'll take that into account, was their language, I think. And will I contact their investigator, Louise Panettone? And the letter was signed by Mylène Gijou or something. So I emailed them. I said, all right, I'll be in Gatineau, where your office is. I can come by. And they said to come to their office. So I did. And I was met by 2 other guys who I had not heard of before, Paul Couture and Tim Mackin, who I later Googled, and they're 30-year veterans of the RCMP. They wouldn't give me their business card, which I thought was a little unusual for cops. So my guess is that they're on contract with the election commissioner. I don't think they're currently serving with the RCMP. I looked at the law, and again, I'll defer to your expertise, but I think when you're an investigator for the election commissioner, you have the powers of a peace officer. I think there's a line to that effect, but I'll stand corrected. So they were like, we'll call them election cops, just the way there's railway cops and agriculture cops. These were like, they weren't packing heat.
But they were. I mean, I suspect, and I'll ask everyone in the who's watching now if you've seen this to like put in a why. But I suspect everybody has seen your undercover video, which we're going to get to in a second. Actually, and before we do that, let me just make one funny. Someone just said, somebody noticed, I thought you'd both get a kick out of this, Real Bambunga. We have identical glasses. So
I think we do.
And I think someone said, I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I noticed a similarity in terms of our facial features as well. So thank you, Real Bambunga. And then we got Jeff Gross says, did Ezra hurt himself? 2110 in his video. Is it something of an admission? Is Ezra prioritizing his political stand over his legal defense? Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
That's a great question. I'd love to answer that a little later, but I'll follow your lead.
Okay, you know what? Let me take a picture of it so that I know not to forget this question. Okay, so you get this letter now. All this to say, by the way, your initial lawsuit for the administrative review, or the what do they call it? We'll call it administrative review. That's still pending. So you still have that ongoing file with the federal government right now.
Right.
You publish this video. You start advertising for it. I'm going to ask you a question that I suspect others are thinking, because hearing you talk, I can get the idea already. It sounds like you know the rules to some extent, which is why in your billboard and your ads, you used 3 words by the book, as opposed to anything that could reasonably be construed as election advertising.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to, and you and I talked very briefly on the phone the other day, and I said to you that I have no secrets here. I'll answer any question for you. I'm not embarrassed of anything. I'm not shy about anything, but there may be a couple of things that for legal reasons I don't want to answer you in full, because this thing is still live, and I know that these 2 cops watch my stuff. They told me so. I don't want to tip my hand with you and give them some information. So that's a great question. And let me just say, the fact is there are only 3 words on the sign, by the book. And what was strange about the letter they sent me, I call it a threat letter, is it had within it the exemption for books and the promotion of books. Like, that's odd to me. Like, if you know that that's an exemption, if you put it in the letter to me, why are you coming for me? You're making my case for me.
Well, and this is when we're going to get in. This is when the question becomes this is when the question becomes, assume it's illegal. Does it even make sense that it would be illegal? Because the exception says, with respect to advertising for a book that was going to be published regardless of whether or not there was going to be an election.
Well, that's right. And let me answer that. So, I didn't know there were 24 books about Trudeau until one of those cops told me. And I thought, holy cow, you've been doing your research. Like, I didn't know there were 24 books, but it makes sense. There's probably going to be 1,000 books about Trump when you think about it. And when are they timed? If you have a book about Donald Trump, are you going to release it before the election or after the election? You're going to do it before the election, during the election. That's when you sell books. That's when you want to change the world. I mean, if you're wondering what my motives are, I've been trying to change the world for good or for bad, whatever your point of view is. I want to change the world. I want to do it through politics, through law, through journalism, through charity, whatever. I'm motivated by that. I'm not, my books are an expression of who I am and what I believe. Do I want to change the world? Yeah, just like a Toronto Star editorial writer wants to change the world. So do I want to impact the federal election? Yeah, I want people not to vote for Trudeau. But is it a campaign experiment? No, it's a book.
So
is it? But let me finish that thought.
Yeah.
Is it time for the election? Of course it is. Of course. Now, when I said that, the cop said, "Oh, you're admitting it was timed." But the law says, is it whether or not there's an election? Well, there is an election, so that's what I'm timed. What does it mean if there's not an election? So we have scheduled elections. We have fixed election dates in Canada. What on earth does it mean if there's no election? Does that mean Trudeau doesn't submit to an election? He defies. Like, what does that mean?
Well, among lawyers and among people who can read not just the law, but the intent behind law, what it means, it means exactly how the law is drafted. They don't want people publishing stuff that might influence in the context of an election. So publish it afterwards, they want to basically eliminate opinions that might influence the election that are not going to be qualified as election advertising, so they can govern it, so they can regulate it. I mean, it's clear that that's what the law says. Then the question is,
but it's so strangely worded. It's so strangely worded. Now, I want to tip my hand. My colleague Sheila Gunn Reid from Alberta wrote a book in Alberta's election last year called "Stop Notley." Gee, what side of the debate is she on? So the book was called "Stop Notley," and it was about why we should stop Notley. And so Sheila was investigated in that jurisdiction, and we told the cops to F off. And in the end, and I don't know if you've read this stunning letter. Their election commissioner out there, who was later fired by Jason Kenney. When he was done investigating Sheila for about 6 months, he finally sent Sheila a letter. Have you read this?
I saw Sheila's video on it, so I'm not sure if...
Oh, you got it. It's on, I think the website is still up. I think it's called savesheila.ca or something. The letter from the election commissioner of Alberta says, and I'm paraphrasing, you're fortunate that we can only prosecute the law as it's written. Yeah, no kidding. I want you to read. I would really like you to read that because, well, yeah, buddy, and we're fortunate that you were sacked, because if you're lusting to prosecute people for laws that even are in the books, you're the wrong guy to be a cop. So I had been through this rodeo before with Sheila in Alberta, and so when I got this threat letter from the feds, I thought, I've probably been through this one more time than they have, because I don't think they've actually ever gone after an author before at the Canada Elections Commissioner, whereas I've been through one of these fights before with my dear friend Sheila, and we won. And so I thought, I'm dumb, but I'm probably not too dumb to handle this. And so I made the decision to go in without a lawyer. Is that a crazy decision?
Well, so
most of the time it is, because you're never as smart as you think you are. You have emotional tendencies, you have blind spots, you're not paying attention, you're not an expert, you're busy, you're distracted. It's always a good idea to have a lawyer. But I know that if I went in there lawyered up, the conversation would have been different. It would have been very short, and it would have been fruitless. My goal, because I don't know if you remember, a dozen years ago, I was summoned before the Human Rights Commission of Alberta for publishing the Danish cartoons of Mohammed. And I videotaped that. Now, in that case, they gave me permission to videotape it 12 years ago. And the videotape of that was so shocking to Canadians that it actually led to the repeal of the federal Human Rights Act provision censoring the internet, because it was so shocking to Canadians to see a government bureaucrat grilling, at that time I was a publisher, for publishing cartoons. It was so un-Canadian. So I remembered the power of video. Fast forward literally 12 years, and I'm invited by a couple of cops to a meeting. Now I go in with a lawyer. It's going to be a short, boring conversation. That's just how it's going to be. Or I go in by myself with an inconspicuous camera. I've never done that in my life before, actually. I never used a hidden camera. I practiced because I didn't know how to do it. Some snow just fell down my back. Because I thought, and they asked me some questions that there was no way in hell I was going to answer. But I thought, I'm going to see what I can get them to admit. Or if I rag the puck for 55 minutes, which is what I did, will they let down their guard even once in 55 minutes? And I think they did. I think and I haven't published the whole video yet. I'm going to put the second part up next week. They said some things that I think strike Canadians as odd. It may be the law that they don't show me the complaints, but when I kept saying, what did the complaints say? Who complained? When? And they kept saying, we're not telling you. I think that strikes Canadians as unfair. When I said, there was a moment when Tim Mackin, one of the cops, said, are you sure you want to stand by your internet statement?
Yeah, no, when he was asking
you
if
timed this for the campaign.
You want to correct that.
Yeah, he basically said, you want to backpedal. And he was tipping his hand to me in, I would even say, a friendly way. He was saying, you've admitted you timed your book for the election. Do you want to change your story? Is basically what he was saying. It would be a lie if I changed my story. Of course I published the book during the campaign, just like 23 others did. And if that's against the law, and my book's a real book, 138 pages, $15. I'm a real author. It's a real book. Like, it's real. It's not like a brochure. And by the way, I wasn't exactly a fan of Andrew Scheer in the last election either. So it was a legit book. If that's against the law, then we ought to know about it. And I sure do want a judicial review. And that's something I said to those cops a few times when I was in there, and I haven't released all the footage yet. I said to them, if you guys really think I've done something wrong, then we really do need to have it out in court, because one of us is deeply wrong. I think it's you. You think it's me. If you think what I did is legal, we need a judge to arbitrate.
But and it's interesting because I've done now a few streams with Robert Barnes, who represents Alex Jones. He represents the Covington kids, and he says, like, one way or another, even if you're wrong, and even if you lose, and they say no, you violated the letter of the law, you published a book during the election period, and we're going to give you a $5,000 fine or whatever. Well, that should, in theory, assuming everyone is of the same ideology, that's not appropriate, could lead to legislative change where people know now what this law says, how it's applied, and are sufficiently shocked that there's a legislative remedy where there might not be a judicial one. Because first of all, someone just asked, is it buy the book or buy the book?
B-U-Y.
Okay.
B-U buy the book. I mean, we were trying to sell the book, and we sold a ton. I got to tell you, just a little anecdote. It maxed at number 2 on the Amazon bestseller list, which made me feel a little inferior to my colleague Sheila, who has only had number 1. She's had 3 number 1 books, and I stalled at number 2. Well, last week, when this whole kerfuffle broke, my book finally hit number 1. It's months after the election. What does that say? It says that people don't like the idea that a politician will decide what they can read and what they can't. And that's similar to the Debates Commission, determining what questions you can put to politicians or you can't. And I want to loop in, because 1, 2, 3 is a trend. And now we see Stephen Guilbeault, former environmental activist, now heritage minister, talking about licenses and registration for news or media websites. I don't know if you know this, and I'll cork it in a minute because I know you got questions for me, but I don't know if you've ever read the mandate letter from Justin Trudeau to the heritage minister. It's public. It's on the website.
I did.
The PM.
And it says to the effect of regulating the internet, taking down offensive materials within 24 hours.
Boom, you're ahead of me. So that's not a gaffe by Stephen Guilbeault. He didn't stumble into that by accident. That's the second highest priority. He has 23 items on his to-do list. Number 2 is censor the internet. And it's written in his instructions, 24-hour turnaround time. You can't have fair process in 24 hours. So I think that this is a trend. Is it strange that I keep getting caught in these leg hold traps? Not really, because I stomp around and I like getting into trouble. And for people who disagree with me, either my personality or my ideology, well, who do you think is going to get stuck in a free speech trap? It's not going to be, a boring, calm, polite, vanilla person. If someone tests the law on free speech, they're probably going to be a little annoying. They're probably going to be a little controversial, or else they're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah, and on that, it's a good point, because we all know of the historic decision, the People versus Larry Flint. We've seen the movie, Woody Harrelson, good-looking hero. Most people don't appreciate, and I'm not trying to equate you to Larry Flint in demeanor or personality, because he was excessively eccentric to the point where most people don't know that during his deposition, he was eating his own boogers, flicking. I mean, it was, if anybody's never seen the deposition, go to YouTube and look at it, and you'll realize that and I'm not equating you with him. I'm just saying it takes people who are willing to stick their neck out to bring these issues to light. And it's a good segue, because I was looking up on Wikipedia, I'm reading up on you, I'm reading up on a number of issues that people can legitimately take issue with you as a person, as a news organization. Some of the stories that you've run in the past, some of the libel lawsuits and slanders lawsuits and whatever, and people could say, all right, he's getting what he deserves. And I would say, I'm going to answer the question that I was going to answer you, but I would say it's such a superficial way of looking at it, that because I don't like him, and because I may have legitimate grievances with him on other issues, that now it's, I don't mind when the law, arbitrary and excessive as it may be, comes down on him now, because I'll be good and nobody's going to come after me. And like, my journey on YouTube has been sort of somewhat analogous, where I don't troll on Twitter, and I think you do objectively. I don't say certain things, and I don't use certain terminology, and I say, well, if I play nice, they won't come after me, and they'll go after the Ezras, and they'll go after the Larry Flints and other people. But when they're gone, they're going to go after somebody else. And when the government changes, They might not be going after the Ezras. They might be going after, I don't know who the other authors are of the liberal book. And they'll write a book called The Conservanos, and they'll be under the chopping block. And people don't appreciate that. And they want to personalize it with you to justify what's happening with you and set aside the fundamental issues in law and politics.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things about the American ACLU was they would defend real Nazis, or at least neo-Nazis, but they would always send a black or Jewish lawyer to do it. And they did that on purpose, obviously, to erase any doubt in someone's mind that they actually supported the Nazi, because here's a black man or here's a Jew, depending a Ku Klux Klan or a neo-Nazi. And that was an important symbol, not just to the courts and their clients and the public, that we are here for the law, not for this schmuck. And I don't think that I'm anywhere equatable to those odious Klansmen or neo-Nazis, but I'm definitely a conservative, and I can be annoying. So it's hard for liberals and left-wingers to support me. I'm not looking for personal support. I'm not looking for new friends on the left. I'm just looking for someone to say the law,
is an ass.
What comes around goes around. That's another way of saying stare decisis. What comes around goes around. So if you want to set up a law where the election commissioner can grill for an hour in a small closed room, it was so weird. High security. If you want to set that precedent with me, I mean, I got to tell you, I actually was not afraid. I was a little too lippy, as you probably saw. I was making a few jokes in there.
When you called him fella, that's what I said. That's when people tend to. You were sort of acting on the empowerment of knowing that you were recording. But yeah, whatever. But we'll get into that actually in 1 second.
Sure. Now I should tell you, I've got about 10 minutes, so I'll be quiet. I'll be very much more concise. Put your questions to me in rapid fire, and I'll give short answers.
Okay.
Because I've got to go in about 10 minutes.
Okay, excellent. So, did the investigator tell you not to record? That was one question I wanted to know for my personal benefit.
Yes, he told me not to record. He did not ask me, and I did not consent or agree. He just said, "Don't record." I ignored him.
Okay.
I should tell you that he was recording. He put a little audio recorder in the middle. So we were all being recorded. The only thing he didn't know was that it was video recording. So it was being recorded anyways.
Yeah. Okay. It's because someone mentioned that in the comment section that they mentioned they were recording. So doesn't that change anything? Someone mentioned that you had told them that you were recording.
They knew I was recording audio. They did not know I was recording video. We all knew they were recording audio. And for all I know, they were recording video, but probably not. So they were not ambushed other than the fact that I have the visuals. So I don't know if that's important.
No.
But they were on their best behavior, so to speak, anyways, because they knew there was a recording.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to get this Jason L. off topic. Impeachment. We'll get to it, but definitely not in this video, because we got limited time, and we got I'm a veteran. PPC platform helps my PTSD. I'm afraid to lose my voice. Libranos equals censorship. Thanks, Ezra, from Chris Semchuk, Veterans Police. This is the thing now, and then we'll get into the arbitrary, or sorry, the vague drafting of the law, which allows them to apply it to those who they want to apply it to, but not to those who they don't. So the drafting says, and I'm going fast. I'm going to slow down. If you intended to publish it if you were going to publish it regardless of whether or not there was an election, and people say, okay, well, that's an exception, that's a defense. And I'm sitting here as a lawyer saying, no, that's not an exception and a defense. That's actually empowering them to subpoena documents, to examine witnesses, to try to prove that to try to complete their investigation based on this anonymous whatever accusation, to prove that you intended to do it specifically at the time of the election. And so as a result, they get to subpoena documents and examine or what's the word? Bring in as witnesses people that work at your office. It gives them the power of the investigation.
Right. And that was the one admission I made and chose to make, and would have made even if I were lawyered up in that meeting, because I'm just not going to lie and say something so absurd like, no, I didn't time this for the election. 24 Trudeau books came out at the same time. Were all of us doing that randomly? What are the chances that that would be done randomly? Every one of our 24 books about Trudeau were timed for the campaign. And if we're going to make that unlawful, the law is an ass. And let's break the law. Let's smash it. I said to these two cops, if you think that's what the law means, we gotta test it.
No, and it's an interesting thing where you said he gave you an opportunity to backtrack. And some people, if the meeting's not being recorded, and I'm not thinking of FISA abuses or anything, some people might think is that the opportunity to allow them to say that you lied to them, and then you then withdrew it. I don't see that as an innocent thing to get you out of it. I see that potentially as allowing them to say that you contradicted yourself. And I do appreciate that the question is so patently absurd. Did you publish this to time with the election? Whereas if you were to say no, nobody would believe you. I wouldn't believe you.
It's absurd, and it's very strange. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go back to your question.
No,
I want to jam in a few more while we have a few minutes.
So they're investigating you. You have you heard from them since you published this video?
Oh, right. That's what I wanted to mention. Thank you. On Friday, so I guess almost a week ago now, my lawyers sent them a letter. And that's, I don't know if you've seen that yet. It's on my website.
No, I haven't seen that. Oh, wait, I think I have seen it actually. Yes.
It's on saverebelnews.com. If people want to see it, I think it's a 2-page letter. And my lawyers, what I was going to say to you is that these lawyers had one job: to read me my constitutional caution. That's in their handbook. It's published as a rule. And they didn't. Now, I don't think anything really will turn on that, but they didn't caution me as they ought to have done. I don't think that's particularly important, but they certainly were dotting the I's and crossing the T's. There's at least 5 people working on this case. Mylène Jijou, Louis Paneton, the 2 guys in the room, someone else, the chief commissioner, and then someone who didn't sign a letter wrote to me from the commission. So that's a surprising amount of resources. I don't regard what I was doing as meddling in the election, because I'm a Canadian. That's what I call participating in the election. I'm not a foreign donor. I'm not someone voting twice. I'm not someone interfering. Like, what I did in my mind was participating in the election in a really good way. And thousands of people seem to agree with me. It hit me with a couple more quick snappers, then I'm going to say goodnight.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to let everybody know: when Ezra agreed to this, not only did he not insist that I send him questions in advance, he didn't even ask that I do. And when I said I could send you the general questions, he said, I don't care. And I like that, because first of all, I like that he agreed to do this with me. And I appreciate that he said, I don't care what questions you're going to ask away. And now I forgot the last question, which was going to be, you haven't heard from them since you made this recording.
Right.
Why? Okay, so my strategic decision, because, client comes to me and says, I have the video recording. What do I do with it? I say, keep it in your back pocket. Tell everybody what happened. Give them a chance to deny something that you can then subsequently prove.
Right.
People are, and I know they say it of you already, people are going to accuse you of trying to milk this, exploit it financially to promote, ask for donations, ask for this and that. And they may be right, but so, I guess the question is this: are you trying to exploit it financially, or what's the rationale behind releasing the video in the context of this greater debate?
Sure. I wanted that video released the same way I wanted the cartoon video that I recorded 12 years ago released, because I wanted that fact on the public record. I want people to know. And as the kids say these days, pics or it didn't happen, So it wasn't a legal decision. It was a journalistic decision. And it was, I remember a dozen years ago when I was hit with the cartoon complaint. And I know this is going to sound crazy to you, but this is what I thought then. And I probably still believe it now about the cartoons. I said, thank God they're coming for me. What, are you crazy? Well, because almost anyone else would have said, oh, let me get out of this. The Human Rights Commission a dozen years ago said that if I paid a few $1,000s to the imam who criticized me, and if I gave him a page of rebuttal in my magazine with no editing, they would let me go. And this was once I had been roughed up for 6 months and spent a lot of money. I know 99% of people would have taken that deal. But I am stubborn and stiff-necked and stupid. And so I thought, I will fight you until I'm dead. And I thought, thank God they came for me, because if they went for anyone else, they would have got away with it. And so I say again in 2020, and my hair's wet from the snow, I say, and I got to go really soon. I said, thank God they came for me, because anyone else either wouldn't have done it or would have immediately collapsed or would have pled something. Anyone else would have been more rational. And we don't need that now. We need the opposite. We need, I'm not going to say we need a Larry Flynn, but we need someone who's going to say, let's fight, because this is so bad now. And I want to tell you, we spend more on lawyers a year at Rebel News than we do on anything else other than journalism. We're on track for about $500,000 in legal bills in the last year. And if anyone thinks that litigation is a profit center for us, they're welcome to help me cover my bills. For example, I mentioned that reporter, Sheila Gunn Reid. She was assaulted on a story. So the cops dropped the ball. So we sued in civil court. We spent more than $30,000 suing. She won a $3,500 award. Is that for profit? No, that's my way of saying, don't you dare touch a Rebel reporter. We're suing the York Regional Police because they roughed up my reporter, David Menzies. There's no way we're going to make money on that. It's not about the money. It's about telling the cops, stop beating us up. We sued for the Debates Commission. I assumed we were going to lose. My lawyer said to me, don't expect to win. It's an uphill battle. I said, we've got to do it. We've got to do it. Who else would? Well, True North did, but no one else was in the court. No other media was in the court. No civil liberties group was in the court. So if people think that I'm looking for this litigation, do me a favor and don't ban me. Do me a favor, don't interrogate me. My advice to Justin Trudeau is, you want to deal with Ezra Levant and Rebel? Ignore me, and I'll just putter away. I'll putter along. But like, seriously, you're hauling me in. I got to go. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm late, and I just got to know.
You know what, Ezra?
I got to go.
Everyone to stick around. I'm going to stay in here. But Ezra, thank you very much. And you actually answered my last question. And we'll do it again. We'll do a follow-up because it's...
Sure. Sorry about this, the weather, the traffic, but we'll talk again.
It doesn't matter. People are enlightened. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So stick around. This is weird, actually, because I've never actually carried on a live stream after the participant, or the what's the word I'm looking for? Not participant. The interviewee has gone. So it will allow me to get to some super chats very quickly. By the way, I'm in my basement office because we could not, there was no way of doing this during the waking hours of the children upstairs. There would be too much noise. Robert Atkinson's Viva, sorry, can't pronounce my name. How authoritarian would Canada have to get before you would willingly leave Canada? I've had the thought, actually, and I get asked on my US videos as well. I think I would run for prime minister in order to change the problem before fleeing the problem. That's my answer. But I want to say a few things just about Ezra Levant, and I'm going to be reading the chat actually much more actively now because I didn't want to get distracted. Supperman says, thank you very much. By the way, thank you all for the super chat. If I missed any, I don't think I did, but thank you very much. I'm US Texas. I am on the side of Rebel Media. Supperman, and you know, this is, I try to avoid my opinions because everybody's got an opinion, and generally speaking, everybody's got an opinion. This is not, and I can appreciate being on the side of Rebel Media. I'm just on the side of freedom of speech and not these poorly drafted laws, the interpretation of which can only serve to cause problems. PPC, Maxime Bernier, thanks, Viva, love your vids. Rick D. Yeah, PPC, you know, the funny thing is, in our elections, my prediction was that the PPC was going to absorb some of the protest vote from the Liberals and the NDP and the Conservatives. But in Quebec, it was the Bloc that got it, which I find it very interesting to have a federal election. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, the Bloc Québécois has seats in the federal government, and their primary objective is to have Quebec separate from Canada. And I say this without judgment. It's just a very ironic thing to have a federal political party whose objective it is to separate from the Federation. They picked up a lot of votes in Quebec. Max Thompson, have Gavin McInnes next. He's also law student. Yeah, Gavin McInnes. I read up a lot on the people from Rebel Media. I learned a lot looking into this. Christopher Variant says, loving these interviews, VF. Keep them up. Ezra is great. Big fan of the Rebel, watching with concern for Canada and Canadians from Denver, Colorado. First of all, thank you very much. I'm concerned as well. Like I'm concerned, but you know, my subscriber base from the US says it's a Canadian problem, but they don't necessarily fully appreciate their administrative tribunal issues in the United States as well. Okay, I think I missed a $9.99 super chat, and I feel bad. If anybody, there was a yellow $9.99 super chat, and I missed the question. If somebody can repaste it so I can answer it. Having now acted on his journalistic decision, legally, do you think he's protected by having this visible and high profile in the public? Protected? If you don't mean, I don't want to use the word conspiratorial. I think a lot of people exaggerate the conspiratorial concerns. I would only be concerned that he violated some law by recording the meeting, but that's not really the major concern, because at this point, if he were to get prosecuted for having recorded the meeting, people might, even his enemies, even people who hate him, might start saying this is getting a little excessive. But this is the issue. It's my issue with the antagonists. He is an antagonist. There's no question about it, and he's not a clean-handed antagonist. And I say he, Ezra Levant, Rebel Media. You know, they've made mistakes. They've published bad stories. They've had to retract stories. They've had to pay defamation. But it takes these types of antagonists to make change on what is, an otherwise objectively abusive or objectively poorly drafted laws. It's not the tired old person who's not going to fight it because they just want to have one, they just want to their coffee in peace and quiet in the morning. Those are not the ones who are going to fight. It takes the guys who get into trouble and do stupid things to pick stupid fights, so to speak. Okay, let's see what we got here. Jason L. I'd move to Canada to vote for you. Best way for me to reach out to you to offer some of my software engineering services. I love what you do. Jason L., my email address is david@vivafrei.com. I'm somewhat overwhelmed on social media, so don't take offense if anybody sends me a message and I don't get back to it. I try. But david@vivafrei.com is my good email address. Thank you for the super chat. Because it is, there's a couple of principles. More laws, less justice. Oh, here, this is the one. Speaking of more laws, less justice. Cooper sees truth. When a tyrannical force violates the rights of one person, they violate the rights of everyone. When somebody fights for their rights, they're defending the rights of everyone. Thanks, Ezra, for fighting. And this is the tough thing for people to understand is people think that, if the law applies to someone that I don't like, it's okay, because it'll never come back to bite me in the butt, as if there's never a swing of the pendulum where it's another political party in power who's going to enforce those very same laws on different people. It's unjust laws. Oh, that was the expression I wanted to get to. Unjust laws, in order to be overturned, need to be applied vigorously. And I think it was Abraham Lincoln. And I think I might be bastardizing the expression. But the idea is, if you have an unjust law, the best way to cause it to be changed is to apply it mercilessly, so that people see how fundamentally unjust the law is. This law, if I'm predicting, I think Ezra Levant and Rebel Media probably contravened that law. They're not going to go to jail. They're not going to have 5 years in jail. They're not going to jail for this. They might get a fine, and you know what? They'll pay the fine, and it'll probably cost them more to contest the fine, and it'll cost the government more to pursue the fine. And that's the ultimate, waste when you're fighting battles with other people's money. But making it public, even if you hate the character, is going to say, yeah, why would the government even, require a prohibition on this? Now, in fairness to the law, a lot of people might say they're not requiring a prohibition. They just want you to register your book. They want you to register your publicity as a third-party political advertiser. What's what I'm looking for? Just register it. Just pay your dues. Register your website. Register your book. At some point, and I appreciate the concern, at some point you no longer have the certain freedoms that come along with life in a free society. And registering your website. There's only one good reason why. There's two good reasons why anybody would want name, address, registration. One is for taxation, indirect taxation, just like register your drone, which I had to do. Um, and there's legitimate reasons. Crash your drone into a building, we want to be able to track you down based on your serial number. Okay, register your drone. Indirect taxation. It's another $5 charge per drone that they sell that goes to the government. Okay. Then the other reason, when you're not talking about things like drones, when you're talking about things that can be sort of politicized, registration, address, and information, so we know who you are and how we can get to you. So if you put something on a website that we don't like, we can apply a nebulous or ambiguously drafted law, and we know where to get you exactly. So it's a serious thing. When will you debate Legal Eagle? Whenever he accepts the invitation. Now, I would just discuss with Legal Eagle, because anybody who doesn't know who Legal Eagle is, I suspect everybody watching now knows who Legal Eagle is. Be courteous, be respectful to Legal Eagle, because he's a smart person. Even if he applies his knowledge to his partisan perspective of life, everyone's entitled to do that. So be courteous. I'll discuss with him any day of the week. I'll tweet out to him, and that's how I actually got to Ezra. I tweeted, and people retweeted, and it reached Ezra. It was great. I would have a discussion with Legal Eagle any day of the week. I'd have a discussion with anybody any day of the week, except for the backlash that comes with having discussions with people that social media has determined to be persona non grata. So can Viva impeach Trudeau? No, we are a parliamentary democracy. The word I forgot when I was discussing with Robert Barnes. We have the parliament that votes a vote of non-confidence to remove the prime minister, or elections where they get reelected. So that is the situation with Ezra Levant. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, full disclosure with Ezra Levant, Rebel Media's history is that, they've published stories that have proven to be false. They've made statements that they've had to retract. They've had defamation suits where they've been ordered to pay damages. Okay. The funny thing is, some people are going to hold that against Ezra Levant to discredit him and Rebel Media as news sources. They might very well be advocacy news sources, but as news sources. The ultimate irony is, you flip it around and you got CNN defaming Nicholas Salmon settling, and nobody holds that precedent against them as harshly as they do against the people they want to demonize. And the other thing is, I am all for allowing people to say stupid things and having the ideas battle themselves in public, and let Ezra Levant and let Rebel Media publish silly stories that people react to. It's the reaction that equalizes the situation. It's the reaction that brings out the truth. And it's the same thing with the law. Like, okay, publish a stupid law. It's going to be the fight that ensues that's going to bring that stupid law to the public's attention, so that meaningful change is brought about. What else? That was a big hesitation. Let's see what we got here. Viva Frei, can you go into the laws surrounding political advertising and lobbyist licensing? I don't believe it was publishing the book as the problem. It was more about the advertising. Well, true. And now I wasn't going to press Ezra Levant on this either, because I don't like doing these types of interviews on pending legal issues. I'll do analyses on legal issues and explain my opinion. I don't want to be the source of someone disclosing too much and prejudicing their own case. And when I did my live streams with Robert Barnes is more than capable of knowing when he should not answer questions. So this specific question, I have no doubt it wasn't necessarily the book. It was specifically the advertising. Specifically the advertising, which was done in a way to easily be confused with political advertising. Billboards, whatever they call those things on front lawns, specifically. And I have no doubt either, and this is not based on any information that anyone else, that I have that no one else does. I have no doubt Ezra Levant was deliberately poking the bear, because that's what he does. That's what makes him who he is. Love him or hate him for it. He's poking the bear, and that bear is the government. And no doubt he's poking the bear in the manner in which he's doing it, and he might have a good defense. He might have stepped over the line. But if the line is that ambiguous, then we either need a legal remedy or a legislative one. So that's it. What else? Is an hour and 5? Okay, we could wind it down. Let's get some more questions. If anybody's got more questions, did I have any more deep thoughts on Ezra Levant and Rebel Media? It's interesting reading the way that they are described in Wikipedia, in Maclean's magazine. It's an amazing thing to see how people can be effectively demonized so that becomes their identity, in printed word. I got nervous about doing the live stream after having looked into it because of the way they were described in social media, and then the idea that somehow I will be condoning, approving, promoting, boosting, giving a platform to this by inquiring into it, and it's an interesting thing because I felt it's probably self-imposed intimidation, but I was like, start to get nervous about whether or not I even delve into the subject because I want to delve into it, I want to understand it, and I want to bring the information out so that you can all form your own opinions without me telling you what to think. And then I'm wondering, like, am I going to get in trouble for even doing it? Does it annoy you that this case would be thrown out rather quickly in the United States? The Supreme Court is pretty strict here, the breadth of what's allowed. 100. Well, it doesn't annoy me. I fully appreciate how quickly this would be tossed. Well, I should say this. You would have to challenge the constitutionality of the law. I suspect that a law like that would never be published as drafted. I don't know what the rules are for political advertising in the States, but I suspect this lawsuit, there's no lawsuit yet. I suspect this would be tossed in a heartbeat in the States. And I have fully come to appreciate the radical difference in value that Canada and the United States places on the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. I mean, the Americans have placed a great degree of emphasis. Almost, it's like I don't want to say they've like deification, but yeah, freedom of expression, freedom of the press in the States is, I think it is commendable because I think anytime people tell you what you can't and what you can and cannot say, it doesn't go good places. I think it only actually goes bad place. Gotta love the First Amendment, no question. Citizens United, yeah, that might be a vlog that I should do for my own benefit and for for the benefit of those who have never delved into it. Charlie Ulver says, Viva, I would super chat you if I could, but could you please at least give a response to my request, even if it's a no? Hold on. Charlie, what was the request? I didn't see it. Post it again and I'll get to it right away. Scott Owens. Okay, sorry. You know what? I should not tap into conversations that I'm not a part of. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens. My strategery, to quote Bush, would be I would not have disclosed that video if I had been advised that my client had it. I probably would have said don't do it if my client had asked me first, especially since I'm, fearful. If he had gotten caught in the act, it's not a question of whether or not he's right or wrong. It's a question of what would have happened to him if he had gotten caught recording in the act. I would have told him not to do it, but that's why there are the Ezra Levants in the world, and that's why there's the memes in the world. But the world needs different people. What do we got here? We got Nicholas Aaron says, Merry acquittance, everybody. God bless you, Viva Frei. Merry acquittance, I have not heard. He acquitted, I heard, and there's some funny memes going around. There was the Ulvari who I said post your question again, and I'll see if I can get to it. But as always, if anybody wants to email me, david@vivafrei.com. And if anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, Viva Frei, I'm pretty responsive, but not 100%. Courtney Grace, Viva Frei, do you think there is a hope chance the poor precedents will be reversed or nullified via other legal recourse? Are we talking in the Ezra Levant case? Because there is no precedent yet. There's that law, which is ambiguous, and we'll see where it goes before the courts. But if the law is drafted the way it was to prevent what they wanted it to prevent, which is ostensibly exactly what happened in this case, is someone publishing a book during an election period with the, call it disguised or cloaked intent of being political advertising, but for themselves, but they are now recognized as a third party. It is what it is. Gary Fluke says, I completely commend you on your action to change the system instead of moving. I picked up a rifle and headed down to arrange for them, I believe. Okay, that was probably not intended for me, but okay, so what else? Last question. I think I've covered it with Ezra Levant. It's interesting. I mean, and I've seen Gavin McInnes. I've watched some of his videos. I've seen play some guitar. Uncivil law, Black Leaf, I believe. Yeah, those guitar. One of them is a bass that's missing a string, and the other one's a guitar that has no string. So this is my lair so that we don't hear the noise from upstairs. Uncivil law. Thank you very much. We got Ezra Levant and other precedents you had mentioned earlier. Yeah. So look, I got to tell you, on the first issue of the I don't want to call it judicial review, but the review of the process through which they accredit, I'm not confident that he's going to win on the long term of that first case where they were denied accreditation. They got accreditation, good. They won that battle. As far as it goes in terms of behind the process of how these permits are doled out, I don't think you'll ever get an answer from the government as to how it was done in the past. They might change the policy or make it a lottery in the future. But to the extent that it's based on the credentials of the news agency or the news outlet or the media organization, yeah, maybe they'll win. I don't think it's a tough thing because how do you even draft the judgment that would grant them what they're looking for? You can say the judgment would have to read, disclose your modus operandi for issuing accreditation. I don't think it would work. Let's see what he's got. Viva Frei. How does Justin T keep getting elected? How does he maintain power after all his scandals? Blackface. That's political. I mean, look, the blackface, as far as I'm concerned, was not the biggest scandal. That was a distraction from the biggest scandals, which were legit ethics violations, which were in the news. The SNC Lavalin, which was in the news. I don't know. I mean, it's in the States you have a two-party system and people complain about it, and in Canada you have a seven-party system where it's not quite seven parties, but you have a number of parties, and it has its own problems. Let's see here. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, we're going to go 3 more minutes to get the last questions as to what we can do here. It is an amazing thing because to test these laws, it takes some. Oh, that was the question I was going to ask Ezra Levant. I know that he is criticized, attacked for milking these and commercializing fights that he starts. I mean, I know I had the same reflex. Sheila Gunn Reid. Oh, I didn't ask him about buying the domain names because apparently Rebel Media buys a lot of domain names. But Sheila Gunn Reid picks a fight, save Sheila. Dave Menzies picks a fight with Ron McLean, save Dave Menzies. I don't know if they have that website. Ezra Levant picks a fight, tries to raise funds to defend that fight. And so people look at that and they give it names, they call it names, sometimes racial slur names. I appreciate the reflex. Yeah, he's picking a fight. Now he's going to crowdsource to fight that fight. If he doesn't do it, and if people like him don't do it, it never gets done. I don't think I would do it. First of all, I don't pick fights. If a fight came my way, then it might be different. But no, he's an antagonist, and so is Dave Menzies, and so is the guy he's got a K and a B in his name. I forget his name. Kigley Breed, and so is Sheila Gunn Reid. They pick fights, and they pick fights that they want to fight, and it builds brand. They get to exploit it financially to seek donations, and it might look tacky to some. Donate whatever you can to help me fight this fight, and they're buying fights. But it takes to some extent, it takes people like that to test these laws that some people don't even know exist. And when you don't know it exists, and 99% of these battles disappear in the back burner without ever making it to the public's eye, like it or not, like the way they do it or not, it takes people to do it. Let's see what we got. Courtney Gray says, feels like boat sinking one drop at a time. I don't want to get cynical. These things change from one generation to the next, but the pendulum swings back even harder. So it's tough to keep the balance in the grand scheme of things. But then the other thing is, once the government, not to get too cynical, once the government sinks their claws in, they don't give back tax dollars that they've appropriated. So it's never a question of. Rarely is it a question of the government giving back powers that they have accrued. And I say rarely. I can't think of anything where they have, but yes, it is. the ever encroaching power of the government to regulate all aspects of our lives, right down to forcing us to register drones that weigh 250 grams. There's always a good reason to do it, and then at some point um, you realize the full extent of the encroachment. We got Cooper sees truth. Citizens United has a bad rap, but people don't realize the case came about from Hillary Clinton trying to suppress a critical documentary movie during an election. Would be good for you to research it. Yeah, I know of it from 30,000 feet up, but I could get closer. We got uncivil law. By the way, what is your view now in the aftermath of the Barnes Nate throwdown? Barnes. Okay, so anyone who didn't see that live stream last night, this is like back-to-back live streams. That one went until 1:45 in the morning. Barnes and Nate agree on 95%. They agree on everything. They just differ on how they interpret what they agree on. And it's a question of perspective. One fundamentally does not think, Barnes, that the law should be expanded to give more power to the Congress to basically implement a parliamentary democracy. And Nate agrees on everything except agrees with the precedent as it exists today. It just takes a precedent to run against the past precedent or to reestablish it in order for both their opinions to change, or in fact for one to be vindicated and the other one to reassess. But that was a good stream last night. But we are done with impeachment. We're done with impeachment. At least unless something massive happens, I don't think I can do any more research on impeachment. I'm not sure that there's anything more substantively to actually learn from the impeachment process. Now it would just be political spin. Did I just miss something here on civil law? No. So that's it. Okay, so we're going to call it quits now. So on my list of people I would love to do a live stream with, if anybody has the power of the tweet, Jonathan Turley. That would be going back to impeachment. Jonathan Turley, still up there. Scott Adams. I would love Scott Adams. Tim Pool. I know a lot of us watch Tim Pool. I would love to do a live stream with Tim Pool. Who else? Oh, yes, Joe Rogan. Yes, I would love to be on Joe Rogan. No, there were a few people that I would just love. Oh, Philippe Petit, the tightrope walker who walked from World Trade Center 1 to World Trade Center 2. If anybody knows him, I would love to have a discussion with him. Click like, share. If anybody, you could support the channel with merch, but that wasn't the purpose of any of this. You guys know how to support the channel, but mostly like and share, comment, and spread the word, because that's what helps a lot. Are you going to do anything on the State of the Union? Now, the Nancy Pelosi, whether or not she broke the law, I'm not interested in that. Really, State of the Union was momentous or monumental given the circumstances. And I watched it. It was interesting. Sticks, Tex, and Hammer. Sticks is another good example of unique characters that are antagonistic by their nature for good and for bad. And yeah, but no, I like. I mean, Sticks is interesting. He's got interesting perspectives, but he definitely tweets things that I wouldn't tweet. Nick Fuentes. I'm not sure who that is. I think I know the name. Tim Pool is trying to do more interviews. I can do that. Viva Frei ask for Joe. Yeah, you got to aim above the target in order to hit the bullseye, right? With Maxime Bernier, I would love to do that. I would love to discuss with Maxime Bernier, notwithstanding the rap that he got in the media as well. We could do it. Okay. We'll see what video we have coming from tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to have one because apparently 99% certain there's going to be a snow day. There's a website called Snow Day Predictor. 90% of the time it's right. 100% of the time. Go to bed. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I got to go eat dinner. I got to go see what the kids are doing. I just missed one here. Viva Frei. Now that you've learned about America and our Constitution, how has your opinion changed? For the better or for the worse? Definitely for the better. It is a phenomenal thing to keep the government in check. It's a phenomenal power. Real Bambunga, Stephen Crowder. Yeah, that would definitely get me blacklisted. I think I would do it. I would go on. I will discuss with anybody, even if I vehemently disagree with their ideas. I mean, I like understanding even the people with whom I vehemently disagree. It's too long for a shirt, but maybe good. Real Bambunga, thank you very much. Yeah, the Constitution is an amazing thing to, in as much as possible, keep as much of the power in the people, and you can see the fight that happens You can see the fight that happens over it in terms of the government chipping away at the powers of the people to increase their reach. And yep, might as well get Gad Sad to the list. Yeah, but Gad Sad to Montreal. I could probably I could do a coffee with Gad Sad. Be interesting. Another individual who speaks, who's antagonistic, makes his points and makes them in an antagonizing manner because maybe that's what it takes to cut through the fray these days. And I don't have that. I don't like making people angry. All right. God bless you. Good night from Ireland, David. Good name. Thank you very much. Have a good night. I can do this forever. This is the problem. I can keep going through. I love Stephen Crowder is worth blacklisting. Time to end blacklisting for discussion ideas. I accept overt promoting violence, hatred. Even hatred. Promoting it is one thing. When people express ideas that promote hatred, they will get quickly judged typically by the open discussion and assessment of the masses. Audio fine here from Switzerland. I think you guys are late now. Oh God, you are late. Go to bed. Thank you very much, Boris. Let's see here. This channel has such an alt-right vibe to it. I don't know. I have a feeling. I think these labels are meaningless. I'd tell you this straight up front. Chop Suey, 1987. I guess you're born in June 1987. It's a funny thing because you say it has an alt-right feel, and you're not the first, and you won't be the last person to say it. And then people say, "Oh, you've interviewed Robert Barnes, you've interviewed Cernovich, you've interviewed Ezra Levant." The funny thing is, I extend requests to a lot of people. I can't control who says yes and who says no. And it's an interesting thing to see who says yes. And above and beyond that, it's interesting to see who says yes and then says, "Don't send me questions in advance. I don't care. Ask me whatever you want. It's a full open dialogue." It's an interesting thing. I haven't yet exactly come to conclusions about what it means, but I have reached out to tons of people, and I'm appreciative of the ones who have the openness to come and do it. And they're the ones that I've done live streams with. Okay, let's do it. 21:22 is a good time to end this. Everyone, thank you very much. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for tuning in. This was good. We had over 1,000 people at one point. Now, I'm going to leave the chat to all of you. I'm going to follow up with Ezra because I know we can do this again where we won't be so stressed and we can, get it done, proper lighting, follow-ups, and talk about the issues. And there's a number of other stories I have to follow up on. So stay tuned. I am going to now go eat dinner. I'm going to put my finger over the thing, and thank you very much. Peace out.